Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Deaf Women's Herstory Month. We would like you to meet our 4 ACDHH staff. We will each introduce ourselves. I'll go ahead and get us started. Hi, I'm Kim Menard. I'm a deaf specialist with ACDHH. I have worked with the agency for 3 years. I'm excited to be here today. I am a white woman with black hair pulled up into a bun, wearing glasses and a blue shirt. My background is white walls with some closet doors. We are here today to recognize Deaf Women's Herstory Month, which occurs every year. Internationally, it has been happening on a yearly basis, but officially, Deaf Women's United, established in 2014, Deaf Women's Herstory Month, where it recognizes 31 different deaf women throughout the month of March. So we're excited to have you here joining us today. I'm going to turn things over to Julie.
Hi, I am Julie, and I am the deafblind specialist here at ACDHH. I'm excited to be here. I am a white woman with brown shoulder length hair with black glasses. And I am wearing a blouse with some white gray flowers patterned. My background is a tan neutral gray wall behind me.
Hello, everyone. I'm Becca Bailey. I'm a community engagement liaison for ACDHH. I'm a white woman with brown hair that's wavy. I'm wearing a black shirt that's short sleeved, and my background is orange.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sherry Collins, and I am the Executive Director here at the Arizona Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And we are celebrating, or we'll be celebrating 23 years of service with me as the Executive Director. And I am a white woman with short length hair, and I'm wearing a black V-neck shirt with a silver necklace and some hot pink big glasses and some hot pink lipstick. And my background behind me is a black striped screen that looks like wood paneling. And I'm so happy to be here.
Okay, this is Kim again. We have a series of questions that I will be asking, and each of us will take turns responding to. The first question we have is, can you please talk about your background? What did your upbringing look like as a deaf woman? Did you sign when you were young? What is your family makeup? I'll go ahead and start first. I was raised in a family of all members who could hear, and I was fortunate that all my family learned to sign. I was mainstreamed with an interpreter until my senior year, where I finally went to the School for the Deaf. So I had that experience, and it was a great, inspiring experience for me. I then went to Gallaudet University, where I graduated with a degree in communication arts. I'm thankful to my parents. Language is so important, and they provided me access to that. So that's my experience being raised as a deaf woman. Julie, how about you?
This is Julie speaking. My background really is quite diversified. I found out they found that I was deaf when I was 2, and my parents, they had put me in PDSD, Phoenix Day School for the deaf, and then I had they were involved in the mentor program for adolescents that were aged 2 to 5, and with the whole reason of language deprivation and being able to not have a label at that time, back when like they do now, that language deprivation was known now, but this was back in 1975. And so they didn't know what that meant, but they knew that they needed to put me in this program that was for children ages 2 to 5 to learn how to talk so that I could develop my language skills needed. And then at 5, I went into PDSD for about 2.5 years. Until I was about 7. And then I went to ASDB, Arizona State School for the Deaf and Blind in Tucson. And I was there for about 2 years, and it was rough, being age 7 and riding the bus all by myself, and all the way from Mesa down to Tucson. But it was a good experience living in the dorm for a week, and then I would come home on the weekend, and I did that for about 2 years. And I missed my family. It was hard to be away from them. And then after that, I went to mainstream school up until I graduated. And then I went to ASU. I got my bachelor's in family counseling there, and then I went to the University of Phoenix and received my master's. My curriculum was in education development.
This is Becca. I was born and raised in Ontario, Canada. So not here in the US. My parents were both US citizens, so I have dual citizenship. But my experience being raised in Canada, I'm the only deaf person in my family. I was identified as deaf at the age of 1 because a friend of my mother's noticed that I didn't respond to loud noises. So they did the old-fashioned pots and pans hearing test and realized that I could not hear. My mother immediately rolled up her sleeves and started doing research on options for me. Her number 1 goal was that I would become a successful adult. And so in order to do that, it was important that I had access to language and communication in whatever form that took. So my mother did whatever she could to make that happen. My entire family signed. My neighbors signed. Anyone in our circle. So members of our church, so Sunday school teacher, and every grade in the Sunday school teacher group learned how to sign. So it speaks a lot to my family and the parental involvement and support I had growing up. They really made me who I am today because they gave me access to language. I attended a public school. Then in high school, I was the only deaf person in my school. I didn't have a note taker or an interpreter. I was educated through speech reading only, and that was very difficult. It was challenging. I attended a college in New York and I graduated with my BS in social work. And then I tried to figure out where I wanted to go. I didn't want to be in Canada. I wanted to go somewhere in the United States. And during my senior year in college, I visited a friend in Arizona. While here, I knew that this is the place that I wanted to be. So I've been here ever since. I moved here in 1996, so over half of my life has been in Arizona. I'm not a native, but I feel like I am. I'm a mother to a deaf son. And I have a husband who is deaf.
Hi, this is Sherry speaking. I was born and raised in the state of Illinois. I was born deaf, but my parents didn't find out that I was deaf until I was 2.5 years old. Very similar to Becca's family story with the old pot and pan hearing test method. I was not responding to that test either. So there was, you know, they tried to figure out how to include communication via sign or speaking or writing. They did any communication that they could to make sure that I understood. That's what my family chose to do. And at my time, we did not have the laws that would allow me privilege to have full access with interpreters in public schools. There wasn't such a thing at that time. And also at that time in Illinois, the public school in the local districts did not permit a deaf student to be sent to the Illinois School for the Deaf without permission. The school district had to release that student or me to be able to go to the Illinois School for the Deaf. So my mother was very, very active with the PTA, the parent group there in school. And she was very involved and fought with the school systems to permit me to go to the Illinois School for the Deaf. And that happened when I was 12 years old. I finally was able to go into the deaf school, and that is where I really started. That's where I really first met a deaf adult for the first time. I had never met a deaf adult. I called them big people. And anyway, so then I went to Gallaudet University, and when I went into Gallaudet University, I went into college there, and then I graduated. When I graduated, it was the university, not the college anymore. So that all happened during the protest of Deaf President Now. That all took place during my senior year in 1988 there at Gallaudet. So just a lot of things, but jumping forward, I had received my bachelor's degree from North Carolina State University. And an interesting story with that, the Illinois School for the Deaf teachers were able to sign, but at that time, it was almost 40% of the teachers were deaf. It's a very, very strong deaf-led in my deaf school. And then Gallaudet, most of the teachers signed. But when I went to Missouri, I really didn't have, in graduate school, I had interpreters when I got there. And so that learning experience was very different for me. I worked at Gallaudet University right after I graduated Gallaudet until I moved to Florida. And that is where I became the assistant director of Gallaudet Regional Center at the Flagler College, the Gallaudet Regional Center there in Florida. And that is where I met my husband, and we got married there. And then we moved to North Carolina. That's where I started graduate school. And at the same time, I was working there in North Carolina, and then I moved here to Arizona, and the rest is history.
Before I go ahead into the next question, for those of you watching, go ahead and add your questions and comments in the chat. We do plan on having a Q&A session at the end of our panel today. the reason we came together, we wanted to talk about deaf women history, and also we wanted to talk right now about snacks. That's my next question. What's your favorite snack? What keeps you going? My favorite snack, believe it or not, and I'm not joking, is oranges. I love oranges, especially clementines. They're so easy to peel and they're delicious. I can have 2 that'll last me the afternoon. If I'm in the mood for some sweets, sometimes I'll steal my dad's peanut M&Ms. He doesn't like to share. Love you, Dad. Thanks for letting me sneak and steal. And I actually have a clementine here with me right now. What are your favorite snacks?
This is Julie. I don't know if any of you know, but I'm a vegetarian, and so I don't eat any meat. I can eat chicken or bacon once in a while, every once in a while, but it doesn't always agree with me. So I typically eat more on the healthier side. But right now, today, my favorite snack that I have with me today is popcorn. I'm eating popcorn here. I have a friend, and we went to the movies and we got the jalapeno for our popcorn. And when she added that, I was like, really? Okay. I never had that before, but ever since I've had it with her, I've been adding jalapenos with my popcorn. So you can see I have them and I add them with my popcorn. So I love spicy food. And so that is jalapenos with popcorn. And now, because of this time of year near Easter, I absolutely love these. The black jelly beans. I could eat this whole bag in a day. But I I probably would feel sick if I eat too much sugar, and then I'll have this sugar rush. And my tongue is going to be black, which you can kind of see. I already started eating into this bag. And so those 2 mostly are my favorite snacks that I tend to eat.
So this is Becca. To be honest, my snacks vary. In Canada, for sure, I'll have ketchup chips. I know it sounds gross, but they are the best thing ever invented. Every time I go home to visit my family, I have to grab all the ketchup chips that I can. I'm a salty snack person. When I'm here in America, they don't have ketchup chips. I could order them and have them delivered, but I don't. So here I'll have sea salt almonds or trail mix. And I make sure that I eat them in moderation. Another backup to the ketchup chip is dill pickles. Those are my second favorite. So I have dill pickle chips. And I could list a whole host of others. If I do need something sweet during Easter time, I completely forgot. You know, the Cadbury eggs with the cream inside? Forget it. I put them in the freezer and I can have one and it satisfies my sweet tooth. So, or, you know, if it's that time of month when you're craving something like that, that's a go-to for me.
Okay, this is Sherry. I am just laughing at all your favorite snacks. And what's interesting is since we've been working at home, since COVID and the pandemic, I haven't been snacking as much. I eat, and while I was at work, oftentimes I would miss or skip my lunch. I was very rare to see me eat lunch, but by the afternoon, I was wanting a snack. And so I'd go to the front office vending machine out in the front of the office building and grab one. And I do, if I really want something salty, that's what I would grab. But every once in a while, if I want some energy to get me through work, like today, as we're, going through one Zoom meeting after another, I always have this little bowl of treats. It's trail mix. It's a mix of nuts, M&Ms, gotta have a little chocolate in there and some raisins. I don't eat the whole thing. No, just I have a lid. I dip into this over and over and over again, not all at one time. I have a lid so I know when to stop. But my favorite thing at the office is I like having carrots and hummus to be able to eat. I go between those two. So that's about it.
Interesting, right? So I'm wondering, viewers, what your favorite snacks are. Next question is, do you have a female role model who is either deaf or not? Let me go first. My role model is someone I look up to, who was my first deaf teacher at the public school. Her name is Amanda Christensen. She showed me the world. She opened the door for me. She showed me it was okay to be a strong deaf woman, which was very inspiring. I miss her. She's not with us any longer, so I wanted to thank her because she helped me be who I am today.
This is Julie. I don't have one specific deaf woman role model, but I do want to let you know all the women here, Becca, Sherry, Kim, I consider all of you to be my role models because I just learned so much from you, and it's just really enjoyable to talk and learn and have time to spend with you. And one of the negatives about working from home is that we don't have that face-to-face interaction that we used to have when we would walk by in the hallways and have those chats at work. And then, like I mentioned with popcorn, I just have to say that, the favorite thing at the office when we were there is I would always send out an email saying it's popcorn time. But like first, so Betty, we have somebody who's staff at the office, Betty, if she always heard that, and we love you, Betty, if you're here, but Betty, she hates the smell of popcorn. And so whenever I would see Betty, it was like, ugh, I knew I would have to walk over and warn her that I would be making popcorns. And she would always like, oh no, I'm leaving. And so I'd always give her that warning before I would make our popcorn in the office, and then I would send out the email, and we would all kind of get together in the kitchen, and Kim, Sherry, and Becca and I, and have a popcorn snack. And I noticed, this time in my life, I'm 48 this year, and having that close connected circle of friends. When we were in college, I knew so many people, and, the array of people that I hung out with, and not all of them were close friends, but some of them are acquaintances. But now that I'm the age that I am, I have this close circle of friends that I just know I can depend on and hang out with, whether we're going to the movies or having a glass of wine or just, going on a trip. These are these women are my role models as well, and my close circle of friends. So thank you for all of you.
I'm the same as my other panelists here. There are deaf women that I look up to, several of them. And I want to echo what Julie said. The circle of friends that I have, every person in my group, well, I don't look at anyone in that group as being a leader and someone to look up to because of their leadership. I look up to people who they are as everyday people with the life situations they face, their jobs, being mothers. So just that camaraderie and support for one another is very inspiring to me. I can't imagine my life without that close circle of dear friends. So I'm looking forward to, hopefully we can vacation this summer together as a group. But my number one role model is actually my mother. She can hear, but as I said before, when she found out I was deaf, she did anything and everything to learn sign, to be involved in my life. My mother was a stay-at-home mom until she was 10, and her number one focus was giving me access to language, making sure that I was self-sufficient and independent and not reliant on others. So sometimes I would play the deaf card. TTYs just came out, Relay just came out, and it would take forever. And I would play the deaf card and say, Mom, please just call for me. It's so much faster. And she would tell me that, nope, you've got it. You can do it on your own. Sometimes it would make me so mad because I wanted to play the deaf card, but I thank her now in retrospect because she made sure that I could be independent and I would not be who I am without her. I love you, Mom, so much.
I have a long list of women. This is Sherry. And for a lot of different reasons and in different times of my life as well, and when they impacted me. So I really don't have just one, but I can name a few. One that I keep mentioning over and over and over again is Michelle Obama. I really, really look up to her. She's a very strong woman. And as a woman myself, that I consider to be very strong and independent, I've always been very independent. So I look up to other women who have very strong characters themselves. I also look at women with strong leadership. And in my earlier years of my career, at my first job after I graduated from Gallaudet, at Gallaudet University, I was working as a student recruiter and I was traveling all over recruiting students in hopes that they would enroll in Gallaudet. And my boss at that time, her name was Rosen, and she was my first deaf boss. And I really looked up to her. She was a very strong person, as many of you are familiar with her. And I'm happy to be able to call her my friend as well. Also, Astrid Goodstein. A very interesting story about that family. Her sister was my teacher at the Illinois School for the Deaf. So I just feel like each person in that family has had such an impact on my life. Astrid and her sister. And then also Linda Bove. We've crossed paths, and we did cross paths much earlier on. And I could go on and on with my list. Also my best friend, for over 35 years now is Diana Heron and Huron. Her and her husband just moved here to Arizona, and we live very close. It's a very, very strong personality with very strong opinions, and she's a very strong leader. And, you know, iron sharpens iron, right? So I trust her with everything in my personal life, all the way through my professional life as well. So, and of course, I have to say my mother, she's still living and she looks 30 years younger than her age. And I'm glad that I have her genes, that's for sure. Whenever people see us, they say that I look just like my mom. So I'm so thankful to have my mother and her genes. But a lot like Becca's story, my mother gave me no sympathy. Growing up, she gave me zero mercy. She said, go to it, do it. You can do it. Done. You go do it. And I'm really so grateful for that. It gave me the confidence as a deaf person that I really needed, and I appreciate it. But there's a long list, like I said, but I'll stop with that. It's important to recognize all of these people.
Very inspiring. I'm sure that all of you who are watching have your role models as well. The next question is, have any of you faced struggles or hardships due to your deafness that you would like to share? I'll start. COVID has caused quite a challenge for me. In wearing a mask, I'm unable to use my voice. So people can't read my lips. I'm unable to read their lips. So communication has become more difficult. And I'm sure that many of you have faced similar things since COVID. Julie?
Yeah, this is Julie. And just like what Kim said, of course, everybody's been having those similar challenges and experiences with COVID, you know, being at home and whatnot. And then with COVID, one of the challenges is not being able to see my friends. Those friends that I mentioned, this close-knit group of friends that, you know, you know, do we go and wear masks? Do we wait? Or, you know, so it's been challenging. And then I want to say, as a deaf woman, looking back, my challenge, other than, you know, being having my experience in education in the 70s and 80s, they didn't understand what ASL meant. They didn't know deaf history or culture or what it meant. And so when going to a mainstream school as the only deaf kid in the school with an interpreter and having that experience, it was a challenge. So I didn't have a whole lot of friends. There was that communication difference and being, you know, labeled as the only deaf kid at the school. So really that experience kind of helped me to be a strong woman and to learn that I can move forward regardless. And second, I think, as most of you know, if you know me, that I am a breast cancer survivor. And that was when it happened when I was 35. I'm now 48. And so I was diagnosed at 35 with breast cancer. And with that experience and not having the support group in Arizona that I do have now, I felt very isolated and on my own to navigate that. I had a hearing support group that I was able to go and ask for an interpreter, and they said I had to bring my own. And so there was just navigating that on my own and going through that experience as a deaf woman was a struggle to get an interpreter through those numerous doctor's appointments that I had to go to. But I think those two experiences growing up through the mainstream school and being a survivalist of breast cancer have made me who I am today.
I feel like most of my challenges are because I'm deaf, not necessarily because I'm a woman. I'm a self-proclaimed introvert. I don't like to get out there. I draw my energy from being within myself, not externally. So oftentimes people perceive me as being quiet and passive at times. So I'm a very passionate advocate, particularly in relation to my son's school or speaking up at workshops or conferences about language acquisition and the importance of American Sign Language. What's interesting is that if I were to go to workshops like that prior to COVID, obviously, some people would come to me and say, this person called you a militant. And I couldn't believe that someone would call me a militant just because I stood up and said something and I advocated. I didn't realize that that type of advocacy could cause such a reaction. I want to encourage people to see me as a passionate advocate for justice and equity in our community. We as deaf individuals have equal rights as those members of society who are not deaf, so I hope that I won't be seen as someone who's militant.
This is Sherry. My experiences are related to the working environment with a very strong male-dominated culture, and a lot of my experiences that I have faced have always, I would say, first and foremost, have been because I was a female and then I was deaf, and that's how I identify myself. And you know, that's how people would see me. And then when they interact with me, they realize, oh, she's deaf. The problem is, as people would come and interact with me, that is when the deafness would then cause the obstacle, right? But in my career, going from state to state with different jobs, earlier on, I had a really hard time bonding with my male bosses. There was one boss specifically that he would turn to other male employees, but me as a female, and he was hearing. And me, you know, I was a deaf female. He would chat and go into everyone's offices, but he would never come in and chat with me. He never, ever did that. And so finally, one day, I just decided that I was going to have the balls to that's what I was going to do. And I had the guts to do it. I went into his office just with no warning. I said, hi. He was like, oh, how are you? And he just let me come into his office. And so I learned that I've had to build my own confidence. And I'll never forget it because I struggled so much then. You know, being in a male dominant environment, in a working environment. Now, when we talk about here in Arizona, I did face one situation at the state capitol. I was advocating for a specific bill for our community, and there was an individual that was male that opposed the bill, that came right up into my face and yelled at me at the capitol. and it just let loose. And as a strong woman and a strong personality, I had no fear. I went toe to toe with him. And in that situation, still to this day, when I see him around, you know, because we're both down at the Capitol, we keep our distance from each other. He stays over there. You know, it's a wave for me. Hi, I see you. You see me. And that's where we stay. We're good. We stay out of each other's way. I feel like I really won that encounter because I didn't have any fear, you know. So with those two specific situations, I think those stand out to me the most, and I felt like it was important to share those experiences.
So as we near the end, we want to again ask for questions. We're ready to answer any questions that you have for us, so please place them in the chat. Don't be shy, those of you on Facebook Live. While we're waiting for questions to come in from the audience, I do have another question for you. This will be our final question. What advice would you share with young deaf women? I want to take important advice that I was given over the years. Stay strong, don't give up, be who you are. You have your own journey and your own story. And that's the advice that I would give.
This is Julie. What advice would I give? You know, life is short. There's no point in obsessing or worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. And things that you don't have any control over. One thing that I've learned from being a survivor of cancer, that life is short. And people are always like, wow, you always look good for your age. You look great. Or they make those comments. You know, I let go. I move on from things. I don't dwell on things in the past. I let it go. The past is gone. And all we have now is now and our self care. I am an important advocate of working out and meditation, things that you find fun, things that make yourself happy. Do more of that. That would be my advice. Don't be selfish or don't think that it's selfish by taking care of yourself. Just do things that make yourself happy.
The advice I have to give, if I could speak to the younger Becca, I would say don't be afraid. Be curious, try new things. If you try something new and you don't like it, that's okay. At least you tried. If you don't try, you don't know. The more you try new things and have new experiences, the more you grow. The more you understand yourself better and how the journey of life is taking you through things. Part of the journey is not going in one straight line. You're going to have several detours and paths that you're going to navigate on your journey, and that's okay. That's what makes life interesting. Just be open to those new experiences and take advantage of the opportunities.
Okay, all the ladies responded to advice, and it was a really good advice. So with the time in mind, I think I'm going to use my opportunity to respond to the question. And the question was that came through the chat was, what have you ladies been doing to keep yourselves productive during this pandemic besides working? So I'm going to talk about that because it's a really interesting question that you asked. There was a real fast adjustment, to be honest. I know the entire staff here at ACDHH, we talk at our monthly meetings, we do check-ins just to see how we're balancing things at home. Some live alone. And, you know, we just want to make sure that everyone has good health and well-being and provide that support to everyone in the office. For myself, I was very, it was just really difficult. And I've struggled on a personal level because I can't travel to see my family. That's been the biggest part. And it's caused a little bit of depression, and I have to really try and figure out that balance, you know, of taking care of myself, using self-care, and controlling what I can during the pandemic and having the vaccination. I'm glad that I've had both of them now, and I support my husband. He's been very supportive of me as well. But I've realized that you really do have to take the times to kind of look inward and take care of yourself. But working from home now, it's gotten to the point where when I finish work, in my home office, I have to close that office door and go on to my life with my husband outside of that room. I've had to create that separation, which has been a big challenge for me, but thank you for that question. So we are actually going to wrap up, so I'm going to turn it back over to Kim.
Okay, any final questions from our Facebook Live viewers? I'm peeking at Facebook Live to see if we have any final questions. I wanted to take the chance to answer the question that came in on Facebook Live. My experience is similar to Sherry's. When I first started working from home, it was quite an adjustment. In the office, I had the luxury of having everything I needed. I had a system in place. I had my friends and colleagues I could work with. I don't have an office at home, so I have to admit that I did experience some depression and anxiety at the beginning of quarantining and working from home. So how I stayed productive, it took me a while to get a new system. I'm similar to Sherry in that self-care is so important. So I make sure that I get up and I walk around. I take short breaks in the morning and afternoon. I'll take my dog Lisa out for a walk for 15 minutes just to move my body and get some fresh air. I use essential oils in my home. I diffuse them, or I place them in critical areas so that I am smelling the essential oils. Lavender has been very helpful to me, as well as eucalyptus. They give me a jolt and keep my system energetic and alert for work. You have to know what works best for you, but I wanted to share some of mine. I'm sure all of you have experienced challenges during the pandemic, and it's important that we focus on self-care, that we support one another, that we reach out to friends. We need to wrap up our Facebook Live. Thank you so much for being here. I'll add contact information from this Facebook Live and also check out our website. We hope to see you soon. Thank you again for watching.